2-0 then the final score in Atlanta. Not too much trouble for Chelsea. That was close until the final 10 minutes of the match. But the Blues do pick up all 3 points over LAFC. What does it mean for Group D? Well, Chelsea off to a good start with the victory over LAFC, who now have their work cut out for them. A reminder, the top 2 in this tournament will advance from each group. For more on this one, we welcome into the show Mario Melchiot, of course, ex-Chelsea player in the early 2000s. James Ali as well. He joins us from Atlanta, where this game was just played. Mario, I'll start with you. What did you think of the Chelsea performance here?
I think it was like, the game was, how will I say? I mean, the way they kicked off, I think they did really what they had to do. And you can see that it's the starting of the season because the way they played. But I think when you played against an LAFC team, I felt like it was, the game was decided by decision making. You know, both teams are trying to attack the game, but the difference was made in the options that you get and what kind of matches are you doing, you understand, playing the ball to somebody else. I think that was the biggest difference when you watch Chelsea, they try to penetrate and score goals. When you watch LAFC, sometimes they try to keep possession, and the reason is not always relevant behind it. And then away from that, I think Chelsea was also contributing to the striker situation, right? Because, I mean, Jackson, great assist, and then the lap comes on and gives an assist too. Both are doing the similar kind of runs, you know, running behind the defense. That's what he wants, what was, you know, Maresca I'm talking about. So one of the key things for him was to see what is the lap going to bring me. And for me, the most important for me as an individual, I was always watching them both because I wanted the competitions to be there. And hopefully it will kick off this season for both players now to compete with each other. So you get the best striker for Chelsea.
James, I want to get your perspective on what Chelsea did over the last 90 minutes. You did see it live, but also curious your thoughts on the atmosphere. We've heard a lot of positive things about the Club World Cup to start off, but the crowd did not look great today in Atlanta.
No, it didn't. It's a fantastic stadium. I hope you enjoy the fact that I've provided you a service elevator as a backdrop for that fantastic stadium.
Was.
Probably the worst view of this stadium you could have. But no, I mean, an incredible place to come and watch a game. It's just a shame more people didn't do it. I mean, look, we have some sympathy with the fact that it's a 3 o'clock local kickoff time on a Monday. People are at work. We could talk a lot about FIFA's ticketing for this tournament and the dynamic pricing. They slashed the prices. I checked actually on the way in today. They're $51 general admission here, which is way, way down from where these ticket prices were when the game was first announced. So they tried to get a crowd in late, but it was 21,000, I think, in here, which is not even a third full. So it was disappointing. It did kind of give it a bit of a pre-season feel. The roof was closed, which obviously made the players, kept them away from the heat. 30+ degrees outside the stadium, so very, very warm day. But it was strange, and probably my enduring takeaway from this actually was seeing a man put an entire bowl of popcorn on a pizza as a topping. Mm-hmm. That got more of a reaction inside the stadium than anything that happened in the 90 minutes, I have to tell you.
Only at the Club World Cup, Stephen?
Well, it seems likely. Yeah. Or it seems like it, doesn't it? Disappointing.
You surprised the game was that close? I mean, it was 1-0 until 10 minutes to go. A competitive match between Chelsea and an MLS team.
Yeah, it was competitive. I think it was competitive because Chelsea in the final third weren't quite as clinical as they could have been. They certainly had. They spent a lot more time in LAFC's defensive third than the other way around. So, to be honest, the best team did win. Mm-hmm. LAFC stuck at it. As you said, they were competitive. And that's really all you could ask from LAFC. Because on paper, there's too much daylight, in all honesty, between the two sides. But LAFC did well to compete. That's what they did.
We got a good look at Liam Delap in his debut. We also got a good look at Nicholas Jackson. James, what's your sense of how that competition is going to play out this season?
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting, actually, that Maresca made the point in his pre-match press conference that he feels that Delap could be England's number 9, that he could go and rival Harry Kane. Obviously, to do that for England, he's got to be playing regularly at club level. And, he's got to really dislodge Nico Jackson from that starting lineup. I think he's quite keen to sort of stress that the two are fighting each other for a place, that there's no guarantees. It's not that Delap as the new boy is going to come in and start. But I thought what was quite interesting, actually, was when he did come on, there were a couple of moments, including for the second goal, for the Enzo Fernandez goal, where Palmer kind of drifted out to the right-hand side in that sort of favoured space, and he picked a pass from Delap, who's just spun his marker and got in behind. And I sort of thought, yeah, I can see a pattern of play there. Happened a couple of times, as I say, once for the goal, where you sort of think, well, if he can develop that kind of understanding with Palmer, that's Jackson's probably his biggest strength. He presses very well off the ball, but he also has quite a good understanding with Cole Palmer, who is Chelsea's best player. If Delap can replicate that or even develop a better understanding with Palmer, then that gives Chelsea a fluidity and a threat that Jackson probably can't match.
You see Delap taking the job off Jackson, Stevie?
I think right now that there's nothing between them, quite frankly. And I think the fact that Jackson has played last season, most of the season when he was fit for Chelsea, means that for me he will be the #1 starter.
Really?
I don't.
Even the 30 minutes we saw today, you didn't see a difference in what Delap made possible for those around him compared to what Jackson did?
No, I saw the two doing exactly the same thing.
Well, but Delap
the only reason,
time, Stevie.
The only reason that Delap is going to get ahead of Jackson is if he starts scoring goals right off the bat, because that's the only problem with Jackson. His work,
it's a pretty
his
big
runs,
problem for your 9.
Sorry?
It's a pretty big problem for your 9 that he doesn't get goals.
Well, it is. Jackson misses.
That's why they brought in Delap, right? I mean, if they were pleased with Jackson, they wouldn't have gone out and signed him.
Well, allegedly that's why I would think they brought in Delap. But we don't know that Delap is a goal scorer. If my memory serves me right, when I see Delap scoring goals for Ipswich, it's running in behind into space, holding defenders off, and then putting the ball in the net, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. But can he do it for Chelsea? So it's a different ball game doing it for a side like Ipswich than it is when every time you step on the field, the pressure's on to finish. And I don't know yet whether Delap is a better finisher than Jackson. And if Delap can prove that, then absolutely he will start over Jackson. Because we know what Jackson is. Jackson's a hustle, bustle, running behind. Sometimes he'll take chances, sometimes he won't. You're not sure whether he will or he won't. All Delap has to do, because clearly Delap can do the other stuff that Jackson does, Delap has to show that he's a better finisher. And if he does, when he gets the opportunity, then he will be the starter. But right now, Jackson is the starter.
Mario, you back Jackson to hold on to his job like Stevie?
Yeah, definitely. I think Jackson is going to start. And just what Stevie said, it just comes down to, like, we've been talking about it, you understand, during the season already. If Jackson does the job that he has to do, then he keeps him away from him. If he doesn't do it, Delap is going to get a chance. What kind of type of striker they went for? Okay, you have the speed, and of course you get the chances that Jackson don't always take. Okay, now he's in a different situation now because now he's got the competition. We got to see how he's going to handle that. And if he produces the things that we are looking for, you understand, as what you expect a Chelsea striker to do, then there's no problem. If there is the problem, you bring someone on that is prior to either one of them. You had strikers that normally could stand their ground, could hold the ball up, and could, if the battle was on, you could put them there and they were ready to, to handle that. Delap can clearly do that. And now it comes down, okay, when he comes in, because like Steve said, Ipswich, playing for Ipswich, we cannot disrespect that club. No, of course we can't. But guys, we cannot compare Ipswich with Chelsea, because what you demand there in that stadium, when he comes on that field there, it's going to be totally different than what he had to do during the weekend at the other team where he was. So can he do that? Yeah, he can do that. He's young. He can develop himself. But one thing he has to be sure that he has to produce better than Jackson is going to do.
We had a close eye, obviously, on Chelsea's 9s. We also had a close eye on Cole Palmer. Some good and some bad, Stevie. What did you make of his performance?
I'm afraid I've got to go with more bad than good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the miss is kind of the highlight, if you will.
I think the miss kind of sums up where he is right now. Had this been pre-Christmas of last year, that he would have been thinking, right, do I put it in that top corner, that bottom corner, and then deliver? As soon as he's made his mind up, pre-Christmas last year, that's what was happening. Since Christmas, too many giveaways, too many bad decisions, trying the wrong pass, getting opportunities, and the composure that he had has disappeared. And again, all you got to do is look at that chance he had today that went conservatively 10 yards over the crossbar from maybe 15 yards out at pace. That is complete and utter lack of composure, which is something that he had bundles of before Christmas. I mean, in the Premier League, after Crimbo, he's got, I think it's 3 goals and 2 assists. For the guy who's supposed to be the superstar of this Chelsea side, the guy who's supposed to be either scoring goals or making goals, but yet he's got 3 goals and 2 assists and 16 games in the second half of the season? He's struggling, in my opinion, right now, and they need to get him back, as I said, to the pre-Christmas Cole Palmer.
James, how much pressure is Cole Palmer under heading into this season?
Yeah, a little bit. And sort of to Stevie's point, actually, Maresca's just been in his press conference and talked about, he referred to a Cole Palmer interview that he gave after the Conference League final, when he talked about being bored of passing the ball sideways and backwards, and he just decided he wanted to try and do something in the final third, and he opened it up, and he created the opening goal that night against Betis. And Maresca's just said to him, or he's told us that he's just said to Cole Palmer, the day after that interview, he said, well, you can do that from the first minute. Why don't you do it earlier? Why did you wait until the second half to get on the ball and try and make something happen? And I think it just speaks to maybe a bit of a confusion about the approach at the moment, about he's playing as the number 10 in this team. He is the main creative force. But there seems to be a little bit of a lack of clarity about exactly how he goes about that. Now, part of that will be, of course, because he's just got a new number 9 who's come in Liam Delap. We've talked about that already. But also the wide players, Jadon Sancho's gone back to Manchester United. Chelsea decided not to take up the option to sign him. There's some speculation about Noni Madueke, whether maybe he could leave this summer. Pedro Neto's responded well today. They're trying to bring in Gittins from Borussia Dortmund. So they're clearly looking at a different kind of attacking force to start next season with. And maybe Cole Palmer's just a little bit caught between, as Stevie said, in the first half of the season, it was a little bit more settled, it was a little bit more fluid, and he could almost do it on instinct and impulse, whereas it almost feels as though at the moment he's maybe second-guessing himself, he's maybe not quite sure of the runs that those players are going to make ahead of him, and he's just not quite stitching it together as well as he had done. I mean, he's a top player, you can assume that that's going to come back again with time, but he has got to work through that at the moment, and he's going to have to do that sort of on the run, if you like, during this tournament.
Mario, he's a huge part of this Chelsea team. How confident are you that we're going to get back to the best of Cole Palmer, as Stevie says?
I mean, look, like players like that, they need the feeling good factor. And I think this is the begin. I think now we have to give them the time. Of course, okay, they didn't have the longest break because that is what Maresca too. He said like this tournament is very important for them. He wants them to win it. Of course, every club is going to say that. Why? Also because of the financial support and also everything that backs it. This because it can really leap you into starting a season of well. But when you look at Palmer, when the thing also happens to him is what Chelsea has to be really careful with, is that the football that they try to play and the creative side is all focused on him. And when everything is focused on one individual, sometimes when he loses rhythm, it becomes a problem then. And I think this is what Chelsea had last season. This season, I feel like I was also asking for the wingers to chip in and score goals. Okay, Neto did it today. So you want to see more of that. The more you see the wingers contribute, including the striker, it will help Palmer as well with his creativity. And I think that is going to be one of the things. He's a confident lad, so I don't expect him to really go down and feel like he cannot handle this kind of pressure. But it's definitely going to be asked. People want to see more every season when you are a star player. And he's that.
Real quick, Stevie, you think he does get back to that form you were talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, there's no question.
It's been a long time.
There's no question he's got talent. And people that haven't succeeded with the sort of talent he has was because of the mental side of the game. I think Cole Palmer has the ability, has the mental strength to come back. So, yeah, I do think it's a matter of time.
Cole Palmer and Chelsea 2-0 winners over LAFC. James, you're with Chelsea right now in Atlanta. What's next on your schedule and your travels?
Yeah, Philadelphia tomorrow. They've got, obviously, Flamingo there on Friday. So that's the next one.
All right. Safe travels to Philly. There he is, James Ollie, joining us from somewhere near an elevator, somewhere in Atlanta's beautiful stadium down there in the southeast of the United States. A reminder, check out ESPN FC's YouTube channel. Plenty of bonus content from the show. Join the more than 4 million subscribers today. Let's check out some of the newspaper headlines from Spain after PSG's 4-0 demolition of Atletico Madrid. A global stumble, says As. Marca a lot of PSG. That indeed the case, as they won 4-0 over Atleti. Mario is still with us. Joining us, Alex Kirkland. He was actually at the game. Alex, you know we love our La Liga here at ESPN, but what happened to Atleti in this one?
Yeah, I think the extent of the kind of the gulf between these two teams was surprising, Seb. We know that PSG are the best team in Europe, maybe the best club team in the world. We saw that in the Champions League, the way they dismantled Inter in the Champions League final. So that's no surprise. But I was surprised and disappointed by Atletico Madrid. I thought they were really poor. I think they just were really kind of sluggish. And there were a lot of talk after the game about the midday heat at the Rose Bowl and how that might have affected them. But it didn't affect PSG, that's for sure. I think the most impressive thing about PSG was the way that they maintained the kind of intensity we've seen from them earlier in the season, even at this stage. The season's effectively over. Here we are at the Club World Cup. They're playing in Pasadena at midday. And yet right the way through this game, they maintained that intensity, both kind of on and off the ball, all the way through, and Atletico just couldn't match that, and that's a surprise, I think, and a real concern for a Diego Simeone team.
PSG, your favourites to win this whole tournament?
Yeah, I mean, what we saw, you understand the way they play. I think the two guys already highlighted, but the key thing is when you're that young and that gelled, like they look like a team that really gelled. They all know what to do. And I think that is one of the key things for them. You understand? When I saw the goal, for example, what Vitinha scored, right to the middle, everything just, it's not, they don't make it look easy, but it looks really fluently. The way they move, the way they have to be, the way they stand, the way they control. And then every individual in that team has a part of a skill level that is so comfortable. And I also have to say, when I watch the Spanish teams in the pre-seasons, and I've seen Barcelona in America, for example, it always takes a little bit of time for them to get going, and especially when it's in the beginning. So I don't want to bash Atletico too much, but I feel like, okay, the mid of August have to be ready because then they kick off. But I feel that those are moments always in Spain. It takes a little bit longer for them they want to be ready right before they have to start and not too early. So that sometimes it also affects them.
Mario, well, one of the factors that might be bugging Spanish teams this summer here in the United States, of course, is the heat. Alex mentioned it, so did Marcos Llorente of Atleti after the game. Quote, "It's impossible. It's terribly hot. My toes were sore. My nails were hurting. I couldn't stop or start." In the end, it's incredible. Alex, you were there, so how bad was it, really?
I mean, my toenails were fine, Seth. My toenails were not hurting anybody. But of course, I was sat in the press box in the air conditioning. I wasn't out there on the field playing against the best team in the world. I don't think I've ever been that hot that my toenails hurt. But I understand what Llorente is saying in the sense that they were just exhausted, didn't have anything to give. And he was talking about how difficult it was, just things like, short intensity distance sprints, starting and stopping and changing directions. I think that's what he's sort of getting at. That was what was so difficult, and especially against a team like PSG, with the kind of movement and fluidity that they have. Simeone was talking afterwards about how, you mentioned the youth of PSG. These players have just got so much hunger, was the word that Luis Enrique used. He said, "We are hungry. We're still hungry as a club, as a team, as a coaching staff, as the players." And yeah, the heat is a factor. Of course, people will say, well, it gets hot in Madrid, doesn't it? Yes, it does. But of course, when it's hottest in Madrid, in June and July, there's no La Liga. In August, kickoff times are built around the temperature, so you don't get kind of midday kickoff times in Madrid in August, for example. And so this game kicking off at midday at the Rose Bowl, I think temperatures got up to around 32 degrees Celsius. Of course, I'm a Celsius, not a Fahrenheit guy, forgive me. But it was hot. There's no question about that, and especially when you're going up against a team, like I say, with the kind of ferocious intensity that you see from PSG.
That's about 90 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you following along in Fahrenheit. Alex, where are you now? Because people are complaining about these temperatures. They're certainly going to be complaining next summer when the World Cup rolls around. Is it hotter than Los Angeles was a few days ago?
You joined me here in my hotel room in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Seb. I flew overnight from LA across to the East Coast. I'm here now following Real Madrid. I'm going to be with them for the next 10 days or so. As you guys know, it's humid here in Florida. It's the humidity that really gets you here. And some of the Real Madrid players who've been training the last few days up in Palm Beach Gardens, they've been talking about the humidity. Real Madrid are going to be playing, of course, on Wednesday against Al Hilal at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. That game kicking off at 3:00 in the afternoon. And we heard Vinicius Jr., for example, yesterday saying, look, we're aware of this. It's hot. It's a 3:00 kickoff. It's going to be tough, but we've got to be ready.
Like I mentioned, Stevie, we got some big tournaments coming to this part of the world over the next couple of years. We're going to be playing in the summer. The heat is a big issue. How big of an impact is it really? You've coached through like an MLS summer. You know it.
No, it's tough. It's really tough. But then you have to use your brains. You know, the old classic saying of, you know what? Let the ball do the work. That's what you have to do.
You're talking about the players here. What about the managers? Does it change?
So what you do is you don't run around at 1,000 miles an hour chasing the ball and.
Well, I think that's obvious, right? In the heat, most players.
You let the ball do the work. You take care of the ball. Let the opposition do the running, and then when they start flagging, bang, you hit them.
What about from a coaching perspective? Does the heat kind of maybe change how you approach a game?
Absolutely, 100%. You know, a lot of it goes on. This is when the real teams that have 3 or 4 individuals that we would call the leaders come into play, because when it's so hot, so humid, you can't keep running for 90 minutes. You can't. You have to have periods where you have to get your breath back, get the lungs back to normal, and calm things down. And so you need those guys on the field to be able to talk to everybody and do it at the right time. Get into a good shape, get tight, and make the opposition generally go on the outside and try and. The only way to get through you is by them running at you. Because you always got to remember again, as tired as you feel and as hard as it is for you, it's the same for them.
Right.
And it's how you compete at the right time in the right manner by changing the pace of the game and then get back and slowing it down to recover.
You know who's got a place in LA among his many homes? Mario. Mario, you got a place in LA. Is it really that bad? Is it that bad in the summers? These guys complaining, making excuses.
We have a month, you understand. They call it the indie weather, and it's a little bit later. It can be really hot because we get the breeze from Vegas coming over, so that's why it gets a little choppy. But at this time, yeah, I totally understand it. It's hot. I never played football in this kind of weather because I was always in England for a long period of my career and Holland. So we don't have that kind of. And in the summer, normally we have a break. But when it comes to that, what Stevie said, I'm used to playing against teams that were older than me, bigger and physically 10 steps further than me. So the only thing I could do, especially when you play for a team like, let's say, when I was at Ajax, you know you couldn't battle with them physically. So you have to do, the ball has to do the talking for you. So what he explained was clearly exactly what was happening. We were learning that when you were a younger kid. So when it comes to this moment, the only downside is we all know Atletico's game. That's not their game. Their game is sometimes they like to rough you up. And if they want to rough a team up that only wants to play football and move the ball really quickly and has those, you know, like, and we know, when you're shorter, you have a better movement. You know, the way you move on top of that field is faster and quicker. So those kind of players have all those possibilities and they want to go physically with you. Yeah, it's going to burn out because you cannot sustain it for a long period of time, especially if you're not up to pace that you want to be. So I think when it comes to the weather, LA is great, but Florida, for me, no, I've been there, and that is really killing because it gets sweaty there.
All right, speaking of Florida, Alex, we got to let you go. Enjoy the AC, and one tip, shorts, man. Use shorts. It's just the shot is just the chest up, okay?
Well, thanks, Sid.
There he is, Alex Hurtland, Fort Lauderdale down there sweating it out in Florida during a very busy time. Speaking of heat, latest edition of the Gavin Jewell Show dropped today. Of course, the boys talking Club World Cup. Make sure to download it wherever you get your pods. Let's stay with the Club World Cup, shall we, Stevie? Of course, lots to talk about Bayern Munich and their 10-0 victory over Auckland City. Certainly historic, but not the largest victory ever for Bayern Munich. There you see the iconic 16-1 over Waldberg back in 1998 in the German Cup. For more on Bayern Munich, let's welcome into the show Alexis Nunes. She joins us live from Orlando, Florida, I believe, where she's covering Bayern Munich. Alexis, any signs of regret from the Bayern boys after the big win against Auckland City? Oh, it was such a devastating victory for Bayern Munich that it took down our satellite signal to Alexis Nunes. How about that? What about you, Stevie? 10-0 looks pretty harsh. Is there a professional answer for why Bayern kind of had to go that route?
Well, I've got to tell you, I watched the show the other night with Frank, and I agreed 100%. The way you show respect to the opposition, regardless of how bad they might be, is by going about it in a professional manner
what the reaction has been since this game from the Bayern Munich team. Any sense of regret that they put up such a lopsided number against a semi-pro team at the end of the day?
Absolutely no regret whatsoever, Sebi. I think you just had to hear it from Jamal Musiala as well as Elisa after when they were asked about if they had a little bit of regret or if they felt even bad for Auckland City. And they said flat out, no. This was a statement win, and that's exactly what they wanted. It actually took me back to when I spoke to Thomas Muller just last week on their first day arriving here in Orlando. And I asked him, look, what are Bayern's ambitions for this FIFA Club World Cup? And he said flat out, we're in it to win it. It doesn't matter that this is his last tournament with them and he's already given his formal goodbyes to the fans. It doesn't matter that they've already taken care of business in the Bundesliga and won it, although I'm sure they would have liked to play at the Allianz in the Champions League final. And it doesn't even matter that this tournament has come at such a peculiar and uncomfortable time after a long football-packed season. They are in this to compete. You put them out there and they're going to play as Bayern has played. And I think it was the perfect message to send to probably some of their usual European rivals who maybe have been wondering if they shouldn't go too hard in the paint in the early rounds of this Club World Cup and maybe save themselves when they go up against some of the higher ranked teams. But look, for Bayern Munich, they are here to compete. And I think that's exactly what the Club World Cup and the organizers would have wanted, because there were so many questions about this tournament in terms of the attendance, in terms of what kind of teams clubs were going to put out, in terms of how competitive they were going to be. And I think with Bayern's performance that we saw yesterday, as well as the PSG performance against Atletico Madrid, that's exactly what we wanted to see, as it shows that these big teams are here to compete like they do in regular season.
Mario, what do you think? Did Bayern take it too far? Did they need to score 10?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. When we play football, you play to win. And as long as you look, I think that's one of the key things with Stevie said. Look, when we get to you score 4 goals, right? It's 4-0. Yeah, you're winning this game. You don't want to, take the piss out of those guys, joke around with them. But one of the key things is what I feel is very important. And sometimes you're not the player that is going to start in the team. So this is your moment. You're not going to joke around because you want to get on the scoring sheet. So that's what Bayern, they have a team that is stacked. The only downside for the guys, they can see it like, hey, I played against Bayern, it's kind of cool. But you also can look at it and say, like, these are the things that I have to learn and get better at and to play at that level. So they understood. They got a really great introduction to the highest level of football.
Alexis, I know you've been busy traveling. What's next on your slate? Talking to anybody there with Bayern Munich?
Yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow we do finally get some chance, Sebi, to sit down and have some one-on-ones with some of the Bayern players. They traveled back last night after that massive win. We're going to speak specifically to the new signing Jonathan Tah, as well as Serge Gnabry, which will be very convenient considering both of them made headlines in recent weeks for Bayern, but for 2 very different reasons. Of course, Tah recently signing for the Bavarian Giants, but Serge Gnabry, there was a lot of speculation surrounding his future at Bayern Munich. However, Bayern said that they are going to hang on to him. He's not for sale. His contract runs out next year, June, and they're hopeful to keep using him as an option or a backup option in the right wing, or potentially as a backup striker for Harry Kane. And Gnabry says he's happy to fight for his place on the team. So it'll be interesting to ask him and get some insights about his current situation.
Good time to remind you about Tuesday's Club World Cup schedule. As you see, a 4-pack of games there, culminating with the nightcap, Monterrey, Los Rayados out of Liga MX, taking on Inter, and all those matches you can stream live on DAZN. All right, from the FIFA Club World Cup, let's talk some Gold Cup, shall we? U.S. open up with an impressive 5-0 win over Trinidad and Tobago. Malik Tillman with a couple goals. Ashmang, Brendan Aronson, and Haji Wright round out the scoring for a U.S. team that finally snapped that 4-game losing streak. What does it mean as we take a look at the 11 here? That's the 11 put forward by the manager, Mauricio Pochettino. Speaking of Pochettino, here's what he had to say after the game. Let's listen in.
Really important now to start the competition with a good feeling. I think important for the player, for the guys. I think nothing is done. But yes, to feel the victory, I'm being more positive in the next few days. I think it's important to grow that confidence in between us. Bueno, el partido de hoy también, un partido difícil, sobre todo por las cosas negativas que habían ocurrido en las últimas semanas. También algunos resultados que no se habían dado bien siempre generan un poquito de ruido, ¿no? Importante para los jugadores, importante tener esa confianza que mostraron en la primera parte.
All right, so Mario is still with us, but thrilled to be joined now in studio by former U.S. international Herculez Gomez. What crisis? What four-game losing streak? Everything's perfect now, right? 5-0?
5-0. Let's go home. Mm-hmm. Crisis averted.
Yeah.
Nothing here.
What did you talk about on
Nothing
Football
here.
Americas last night then?
For a lot. Yeah, honestly, and not that much about the game, because what are you going to talk about?
Yeah.
With all due respect to Trinidad and Tobago, it went how Trinidad and Tobago usually goes in case, unless there's an accident, and Shaq was here and he told you the same thing. What can you really get out of that? What kind of positives?
Some individual performances? You didn't see anything you liked?
I did a few, but even then, those individual performances are of a bad Trinidad and Tobago team, a team that played badly on their day. Talks about the negativity, the drama leading up to the game. That's on Mauricio Pochettino. He's the one creating this drama, creating this pressure. It would have been so easy for the Federation, and I don't know for the life of me why the Federation, Mauricio Pochettino, and Christian Pulisic didn't come together before this all happened to make sure this doesn't happen. Keep it in-house. So this negative drama, this pressure, these players wouldn't have now, because 4 games, it was the worst streak in the last 18 years. They've played bad against Trinidad before. It could have been 5. I know they scored 5 goals, but this game, they somehow managed to not win. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody bats an eye. And that would have been on Mauricio Pochettino, the Federation, and yes, Christian Pulisic, this bad negative moment. So, yeah, they won the game, a game they're supposed to win, regardless of the team that was out there. But he talks about how difficult it was. That's because of Mauricio Pochettino.
Stevie, who'd you like in this?
God, I think you're a bit harsh, aren't you? Don't think you're a bit harsh?
On who?
On the USA.
You think... No, hold on. You think there's a world where they go into this game and they're not supposed to win?
No.
Okay.
No, but I think considering the pelters, the whole noise that you're talking about has absolutely... Every single one of them was carrying weights on the shoulders before this game started.
But that's what I'm talking about, Stevie.
Because they knew... No, I agree, it's down to him, the pressure. But at the same time, that team had to respond to the pressure that was on them. And they did. And they did it from the get-go. You know, I think we've got to give them some positive vibes for the way they went about it. You know, again, you can say that Tobago gave the ball away, but you know what? They jumped on them. They pounced on them. They put them under pressure to make those mistakes, and then they took their goals. And the fact that Tillman got a couple of goals, I think is huge. This is a guy who, it seems, just has never got going with a USA jersey on. And the fact that it's against Trinidad and Tobago, for me, doesn't really matter. You've got to start growing and climbing somewhere. And for me, this could be the start of Tillman growing. Because he scored 2 goals that we think he should be doing and taking on a regular basis. And in terms of who did I like, I thought McGlynn.
Yeah, he stood out to me too.
You know, he scored a fantastic goal against Turkey. So he kind of showed us what he's capable of. But he's still young, he's still learning. And then he played a pass in the first half from one side of the field to the other.
Deserved a better finish for Diego Luna.
I'll tell you what, I was sat like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, if we're talking about individual players, I think Diego Luna continues to still impress. Okay. He's making it very difficult for when the A team gets here to be excluded from that group because of his attitude, because of the way he makes things happen. But I took more away from the first 20, 25 minutes versus Turkey than I did this last game versus Trinidad and Tobago. That difficult game against Turkey told me more about what I needed to see from these players than this Gold Cup game against Trinidad and Tobago.
What are you saying in terms
I
of...
disagree with you again.
Sorry, just to be clear, you're saying in terms of like who could actually make a World Cup team? Because I think that's what we're talking about with this group of players, right? It's who could be players maybe 12 through 26.
Exactly.
26
exactly. I think you get very little, and I'm with Stevie. You got to score those goals, and maybe it's a party in the waters for a player like Tillman.
I mean, Tillman has not scored until yesterday.
And you know how big I've been on Tillman, PSV, and what he's done, especially at Rangers.
The goals and assists come for him regularly at club level, not at international.
But I actually enjoyed the way he played against Turkey. It showed me something. Now, you play these type of games, you're going to find the ball in the back of the net. Ajiman scored a goal. He had no idea how he scored. he didn't even know what it was about, but he scored a goal. I take more stock into those type of games like Turkey. And honestly, there are a few players that did, like Jack McGlynn, scored a golazo against Turkey. Those are the games I want to see these players in.
Mario, you probably see a lot of Malik Tillman over there with PSV. What do you think of the player, and what do you think about him in this game?
I think he did really well. I watched the game, of course, you understand. And I feel like at PSV, he does a lot of, people always talk about him. He's very creative, you understand, the way he buses around in the middle of the park. He is, how will I say, plays on a lot of intuition. So that is his skill. And I felt like yesterday when I watched the game was coming out, of course, what you said that Jones was helping. Because the way Dwight York wants to play, he likes to play from the back, the way he wants to play. But they were too risky. Because sometimes you also have to have the individuals that can handle that. Jones gave the ball a couple of times away, and they penetrated from that. But the way McGlynn played, that was for me the star of the show. The way that not only out of the boot, but also inside of the boot. That left foot of him, oh my God! He made a great introduction to my eyes because I enjoyed it, and I felt like we also the first half we saw a lot more of him than compared to the second half. But that was definitely it. And then, if Tillman, when he comes on and he does things like that, he scores goals, will rise his confidence and he will contribute even more to the American team.
Let me ask you a question here, because you see the US and that a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out here, what does this Gold Cup mean? Is it really Is it really all about winning the Gold Cup, or is it about Pochettino being able to pick out some players, the likes of Luna, McGlynn, in terms of, can I get 3, 4, 5, 6 players from this Gold Cup group to be able to push 4 or 5 of the players right now who are 100% starters?
Yeah.
And then I actually start building a little bit of a squad, as opposed to right now where it feels to me like the US have got an 11, if you can do that, and that's it.
Yeah, you know what the crazy thing here is? I think it's an impossible task for Mauricio Pochettino, because you're asking to identify players without putting them with the actual players who are going to be there, without the core of the team.
And against competition, for the most part, you're going to always be like, well, it's Trinidad and Tobago, I can't evaluate
Exactly.
Right.
It's very difficult to evaluate that. So you're sitting here and saying, which player could potentially come off the bench and help me? Which player could potentially be somebody who cracks into that starting lineup? Realistically, there was one starter, maybe 2 if you include Ream, Richards and Ream. You don't have the spine of the team. You don't have the fullbacks. You don't have the 9 there. You don't have your captain. You don't have the defensive midfielder. So it's very difficult and unfair to evaluate a player like Diego Luna, to evaluate a player like McGlynn, to evaluate these players that could potentially carve out a role for themselves, because there's always somebody, every World Cup cycle, that comes out of nowhere. It's very difficult if you don't give them a chance to participate with the actual team, because the moment it doesn't go well with the actual team, you're going to say, well, he wasn't ready. He wasn't good enough. And I think it's an impossible task for somebody like Mauricio Pochettino. But that's on the federation, and that's on U.S. soccer for how they've treated the Gold Cup. The last 6 editions, they've sent a B team or worse in 5 of those editions. They've treated the Gold Cup like a secondary tournament, and now they're upset because the players are treating it like a secondary tournament.
Yeah. Especially over the last few years, right? Once Concacaf Nations League became a thing, it seemed like that became the priority. Gold Cup kind of dropped into the background. Let's take a look at the group, because next up for the United States, it'll be Saudi Arabia. A bit of a stiffer test, to be honest, than what they saw from Trinidad and Tobago, and probably what they'll get in the group phase finale against Haiti. But there you see, through 1 game played, the United States right now first place in Group D in the Gold Cup. Reminder, it'll be Herc, Stevie, and Mario with us for today's edition of Extra Time. I wonder who will be showing off their hardware. No, Frank LeBeuf joins us. And of course, you can always check that out over on the ESPN FC YouTube channel. Fall to the Brazilian side. Here's what Group B looks like. PSG and Botafogo, they're tied for first. Atleti after the 4-0 drubbing, last place behind Seattle on goal difference. Here's how the MLS teams have fared so far in the FIFA Club World Cup. Of course, Inter Miami opening things up with a very exciting, but at the end of the day, 0-0 draw. Botafogo, the aforementioned win over Seattle, and the game we talked about right off the top of the show, Chelsea 2-0 over LAFC. Herc, how much pressure do you think these MLS teams are under to do well, which I guess in this place would just mean get out of the group phase at this tournament?
Survive. I don't even think it's get out of the group phase. And listen, it's an impossible task, the first series of games. LAFC, who is the only MLS team not playing as a home team, has to play in Atlanta against the Conference League champions in Chelsea, and yet they made it very respectable. And you say, wow, that's something to hang your hat on.
You think they were the best performance of the MLS teams in those first 3 games? Chelsea against LAFC?
Seattle versus Botafogo was not that much of a difference. Botafogo's
Second half
Libertadores.
was good. I think first half Botafogo was way better than Seattle.
Botafogo is a Libertadores champion. That's the best South American team, last champion. And yet they were asking for the final whistle. Those final 10, 15 minutes, it was all Seattle. Now, I think where it gets murky here is where you would have thought out of any of these 3 games, it shouldn't have been, if you had a bet on one team, it would have been Inter Miami. They would have done better against Al Ahly. And yet that first half, it was probably 3-0 Al Ahly, and they missed a penalty kick, and it was 0-0 because of Oscar Ustari, the goalkeeper. I think it's been very respectable. My worry is this is as good as it's going to get because it's not going to get easier. Seattle's going to have a team in Atletico who just got trounced, who just got embarrassed by PSG, the European champions. And then after that, they'll have the European champions. You look at Inter Miami, well, that was the game they could have won. That was the game they probably should have won. Probably don't see him winning against, Palmeiras. You probably don't see him winning against FC Porto, the European team with a little bit more pedigree. If Al Ahly made them suffer that way in the first half. I think when it comes to Major League Soccer teams and even Concacaf teams in general, you just got to keep it respectable. And I think they're doing that. I think they're doing that.
Stevie?
Yeah, I agree with Herc. I think when you look.
So you don't see anybody getting out of the group?
No. I think when you looked at the groups, I thought Inter Miami were the only team that had a chance of finishing first or second in the group.
Right.
But they had to beat Al Ahly.
Right.
Yeah.
And they didn't. And so for me, that means they won't. I expect them all to finish third, to be honest. And that's exactly where I thought they would finish. But as Herc said, the games have been respectable.
They do have one advantage.
Absolutely.
They do have Palmeiras and Porto tied. There's a 4-way tie in that. So if you can nick one of those games, they might have a possibility of coming in second.
So, I mean, if no MLS teams go through, you won't look at it as a, failure, missed opportunity here to Club World Cup to send a message to the rest of the world that there's been growth?
Seb, I know where you're going.
At least one.
I know where you're going with this. And you've coached in Major League Soccer, and I can only imagine how difficult it is to coach a team that has salary cap restrictions against unlimited resources and what that entails. They had a 10-day transfer window that FIFA made up. 10-day transfer window. The one team with resources in Major League Soccer, Inter Miami, who's literally cheated to try to win, pushing the envelope. Who do they bring on in those 10 days? Who do they bring on to reinforce and to help so Messi and friends, so Lionel Messi, the greatest ever footballer, doesn't get embarrassed. The representative of your league doesn't get shut down for the world to see. Who do they bring to help him? Nobody. So if you're telling me that these teams not getting out of the group and are playing literally with handcuffs in this competition, I think it is what it is. I think you answered your own question.
There you have it. All right, so MLS teams, 1 draw and 2 losses through the first 3 games so far of the Club World Cup. Plenty more on that on the next edition of Fútbol Américas, and indeed the last edition of Fútbol Américas, hosted by the one and only Herculez Gomez. Hey there, everybody. Welcome into the ESPN FC studios for today's edition of Extra Time. We got Mario still with us, Herc and Stevie, as well as your questions.
So you think we should explain Giza?
Yes. So was it number 2 on the countdown?
Yeah. So
a Spanish player whose name phonetically looked like Uragizer.
Phonetically.
Right. So Cockney rhyming
really
slang, as Mario will probably be able to tell you now from his Chelsea days. A geezer is a bloke, a guy,
right.
A dude.
right?
Yeah.
And a diamond geezer is a great guy.
Right.
And so you're a geezer, diamond geezer. That's where I pulled it from.
You know what they say, the best jokes are the ones you have to explain.
Yeah. Go on, Mario, give us a bit of Cockney rhyming slang.
Rub it up, pop. Apples and pears, stairs.
Down the stairs.
I know a couple.
Okay. All right, James asks, Atletico Madrid's Marcos Llorente said it was impossible to play against PSG because of the heat and that it was hard to sprint or stop. What advantage does Leo Messi have for the 2026 World Cup, having been at Inter Miami for the last 2 years getting acclimated to the U.S. weather. I don't think you were on the show when we were talking about this.
No, but I used to live in Pasadena. I think 6 years ago when I moved down to Los Angeles, and it is hot. It is very hot. Fortunately for the people who are going to go to the World Cup in Los Angeles, it'll be at SoFi, which is domed, a little bit of air conditioning. But I've been in, and you know this. You've used to coach down in New England. Those summers, soccer Saturday, 1 o'clock. It's absolutely dreadful. You can see heat fumes rising. It's not a pleasant experience. Leo Messi, he'll be used to the heat per se, the humidity per se, but he's going to be 39, going on 40. That may be a bigger factor.
I know it's really bad in LA, but LA is usually not the most humid of the places that you'll have in this country. Northeast gets terrible, Southeast
DC.
gets
Texas.
terrible. Yeah, and DC has some Club World Cup games. They've got
DC.
3 there at Audi Field.
Those are the 2 I remember. Dallas,
Yeah.
4 o'clock kickoff.
Dragon
Lake
Field.
Carroll High School.
Dragon Field.
Just impossible.
Yeah.
And one night we played in DC.
Yeah. Oh, you get the wrong
Guys couldn't breathe.
muggy August and day.
I decided I needed to retire one night in New England, actually.
Oh, really? On the turf in New England, a muggy summer night in New
Guys
England?
couldn't breathe, and then when the final whistle went, both sets of players just fell on the ground.
Yeah. All right, Steve Nichols' personal assistant asks, for Mario, how far can Chelsea go in this tournament, assuming we're talking about the Club World Cup here?
I think, look, we cannot take this because I think, especially at the end, it was difficult for them. You know, I felt like they gave too much away. They gotta finish games off. I think that is going to be their main thing, and if they can do that, they can travel. If they cannot finish the game off, because come on, LAFC at the end, you understand, they had the opportunities to score a goal, and you don't want that. So I feel like if you would ask me straight away, would they win it prior to the tournament? I would say no. Why? Because they're just starting the season again. But hey, we have to see how the tournament goes. But Bayern Munich, whoo, guys, even if it's an amateur team or whatever you want to call that team or whatever it was, you still have to put them in the back of the net. Those are the kind of teams, and Paris Saint-Germain. Oh, I think those are the winners. If you ask me who's going to win it, I say go PSG. But does Chelsea has a chance? Yeah, of course.
All right, Stevie, what was the best under-the-table perk or nixer? I'm not sure I know that term, that you got from playing or coaching? Free cars or a swanky holiday gift?
No.
You mean the Revs weren't hanging out?
No.
Keys to a Mercedes or something?
Absolutely not.
You must have got some cool, like, the Revs and the Patriots were owned by the same guy, so maybe some cool access or something? You didn't go to some. Yeah. You always talk about.
What about at
Patriots
Liverpool
games and stuff?
Well,
like
actually, no, that's not true. You're right. I got to go to 2 Super Bowls. So.
I mean.
And I got to take my son with me.
Was it like VIP experience? Were you in?
You just forgot about that one.
Yeah.
No, not quite, but.
Oh, that's not bad.
I was with all the staff.
No, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, fly down the morning of the game, and then you have the day there, and then you have your tickets, your seats, and then go back to the hotel after the game for a bit, and then get back on the bus about maybe 3-4 in the morning and fly back home. So, no, fantastic.
What about you and your Liga MX days? Any fun gifts handed down by the chairman? Yeah.
No, like cars.
Yeah.
Some of those teams are sponsored by car dealerships,
Okay.
and you know they'll loan you out for a good amount of time.
Okay, nice. Mario, what about you?
Oh, let me think. My best perk was Stevie knows that we always have a person that books our flights for the team, and I end up being friends with that guy, and he ended up booking all my holidays. So one of the key things I had one day, I turn up late for a plane. I jump on a plane, come from Amsterdam, go to London, and he held the plane waiting for me. And there were more people. It wasn't like it was a plane for myself. It was just me. And he held it. And they kept on calling, Mario, you got to hurry up. We're waiting for you. I get in. And the lady that, let me come on the plane, she goes, oh, we had to wait for you. But okay, we kept it for you. This is your seat. Go sit down. And the guy calls me later. He was my top guy. He ended up booking all my holidays for about 10 years.
Wow.
So that was definitely one of the catches that I had to hold on.
That's big time, huh?
Hey, nobody minds a discount, right? Nobody minds a discount, so I'm sure you would have minded too.
You turned the team admin into your own kind of like personal assistant power move there from Mario. Stevie, start, bench, sell these football legends in their prime. Ooh, this is a good one. George Best, Johan Cruyff, Kevin Keegan, okay.
Well, can I start by saying that Kevin Keegan is going to be third. And for those that don't know, Kevin Keegan, before the Ballon d'Or, it was called the European Player of the Year. Kevin Keegan won the Ballon d'Or back in the day, and he's going to be third. That's how good he was, and how good this three is.
And that'll also be the headline in the Liverpool Echo.
In second place, we have the mercurial George Best. I mean, a guy who played football like he was on the street. Every time he stepped out at Old Trafford in particular, he played as though he was in the playground. I mean, just dribbling, scoring goals, just played like a kid. But the winner has to be Johan Cruyff. I mean, he did all the things that George Best did, but he organised everybody around him. And I guess the Cruyff term, I mean, how many people in their life...
It's literally like the first move you learn, I feel like, as a kid, right?
You know, Javi move, such an iconic move.
Still the only move I have.
And Johan Cruyff played at a time where, again, you were allowed to kick people. Well, and he still produced what he did.
His influence on the game, Pep Guardiola, you know, all that, Barcelona, everything we know, Luis Enrique, it all stems from him.
Yeah, it's a fantastic three, but it has to be Cruyff, Best, and Keegan.
Top man.
I love our next question. Memory banks, gentlemen. Radvin asks, what was the greatest goal that you ever scored in your career? Herc, you're the striker here, so you go first.
The greatest goal I ever scored in my career, not even for what it meant, but just
quality of goal, I think.
Quality goal.
Here. Yeah,
it was a header.
I guess you could define it however you want.
That I put literally in the upper V, running away from the defender. It was a good length away, almost top of the box, just right into the upper V. When I was playing at Santos, it ended up being the goal number 1400 in Santos' career. So it was like a good little memory plaque there and whatnot. But it was one of my finest goals. Yeah.
League game in Liga MX?
Yes.
Awesome.
2-0 win.
Stevie, you got a goal that immediately comes to mind?
I've got two.
Nice.
That I'm trying to choose between.
Okay.
Don't up one me with like a European championship or something.
No, you're like Jornada 12, Liga MX. You ever heard of the Champions League final?
Sorry, I need to tell you the two because they're completely,
They're
completely different.
We'll be your tiebreakers.
The first one is in the derby against Everton at Anfield. Diving header.
Okay.
The type of header that you know when you're kids and somebody goes wide and crosses the ball and you're diving. And the most important thing about that was after I'd scored that, I realised I deserve to be in this team.
Oh, so it was early days for you at Liverpool?
Yeah, this was 83.
Okay.
And that was the real change. I always believed in myself, but at the end of that game, I remember sitting afterwards thinking about it and going, I deserve to be in this team. I'm as good as any of the rest of them.
Can I ask one more question about that goal? What was the score when you scored it?
It was 2-0.
So that was to make it 3-0? That was basically the clincher?
That was to kill it, like 3-0.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Next one.
The next one, because there's not many people score a goal like that, I scored a header from just outside the penalty box against Arsenal.
Yeah.
With 2 minutes to go.
Yeah. Opening
game of the season. And again, not just because it's different and not many people score that, but I had missed. I mean, I think I played 10 games the previous season because of injury. I'd missed almost the whole season. And coming back, you're unsure and you're thinking, is it going?
Yeah.
In your stomach, I'm thinking, is it going to go again? And I tell you what, it was just, that was me. I just flew after that.
All right, those are two good ones. A couple headers too. Mario, what about you? Greatest goal you ever scored?
The greatest goal I ever scored was, I think, going and play at Wembley. You know, when you play at Wembley as a young kid, you know, Dutch boy, watching people play in Wembley. I came and the start of the season we played Man United, and at that time they were winning all the trophies. And I thought I would never play football anymore because I broke my foot prior to it. So Steve, you talked about injuries. I had clearly the same thing. Two times broke my foot. I thought football was over. I come on that field, I dribble the ball, and I strike the ball through Jaap Stammy's leg. Dutch guy, happy, and I couldn't believe it. I ran to the side, and I slide on my knees, and I could see my family sitting there. Oh, it was the best moment of my life. I was like, football, I'm back. That's how I felt, and that's how I celebrated. While for someone else, it was just like a normal game. For me, it was more than a normal game because it was right at Wembley, what I was dreaming of to play one day.
Is that the picture over your left shoulder there?
No, it's Drogba.
No. That the one on my left shoulder. You're not talking with the one with the head. You're talking about Ajax, right?
Yeah.
The one on the. The one on the. Yes. Yes. I'm so sorry. Yes.
I thought so. Look at that. Love it when a plan comes together. Okay. Olivier Giroud forgot his jersey in the locker room at halftime, delaying the game versus Chelsea. Other than Stevie forgetting his passport, what's the weirdest thing you've seen a player, coach, referee, or training staff member forget?
Do you remember Edgar Castillo?
I remember you forgetting your passport in Russia.
Yeah, but we got it.
You
got it.
You just about got it.
Just about got it.
You must have had the same travel agent as Mario because they
Exactly, they held the
for
plane.
him.
Do you remember Edgar Castillo?
Yeah, of course.
Edgar's one of the few
We just
players.
saw him down at TST.
We
yeah.
did. He's one of the few players to represent both the Mexican national team
Yep.
and the U.S. men's
A
national team.
one-time switch.
His way of saying he no longer wanted to play for the Mexican national team was I lost my passport.
Ah, yes. Can't get called up if you don't have a passport. That's pretty handy. Stevie? Have you forgot what you forgot already?
Other than last week when I was talking about forgetting my pants, not really. It just when they asked the question, it reminded me of Ronnie Moran again. Ronnie Moran's in my head all the time. He was a coach of at Liverpool, and on 2 or 3 occasions over the decade I was there, guys on the bench had forgotten their boots or their shin pads or their socks. I mean, and he would go absolutely ballistic, you know. And I was watching that today and we saw Giroud, and everybody's smiling.
Yeah.
I was smiling as if, Ronnie Moran would have if he could have got a hold of Giroud today, Ronnie would have strangled him.
Really?
Oh.
That was just the thing that got under his skin.
Oh, big time. Just total lack of professionalism.
Mario, you've never totally lacked professionalism, of course.
No, of course, everybody has his moments. But one of the key things was like when the kid man forgot my boots. Oh my God. You know, it felt
Wait a
like you
sec,
get even more nervous. Like,
I thought
the kit man normally brings
players
all
would
the
be
boots of
responsible
all
for
the
your
teams,
boots.
all the players.
No.
that would make me nervous as a
When
player
it comes
not
to the kit
have
man,
my boots with me.
No,
the kit man brings all the boots for all the individuals. And sometimes
Multiple
you
boots.
tell him, bring, let's say
lot
you
of
say, bring
responsibility on
those
one
boots.
guy, huh?
And he picks the wrong ones. Oh, he picks the wrong boots. And he brought the wrong ones to the dressing room. He looks at me, he goes, what are you waiting for? I said for my boots. And then I had to put on my brand new boots. And I don't like that. I like to break
Players
them
don't
in
like
on
that.
training first
wear 'em
and
in.
then play with them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the guy killed me. I was angry.
Oh man, couldn't sprint, couldn't stop. Your toenails were probably hurting you, and Marcos Llorente suffering one in the same.
I was complaining, I was crying,
I bet
everything.
You were. All right, there he is, Mario. Sorry, last word. You have
I
something?
was just going to say, it's amazing. People would probably find it hard to understand the psychology of us football players.
Yeah.
Because
But you're going to explain it now.
It would ruin my game, Steve.
But
It would ruin my game. Yeah.
because
Having the wrong
to
cleats.
everybody else it's a pair of boots, but to you,
You're a creature of habit.
it's going to kill me. How am I supposed to play without my proper boots?
Yeah.
Even though you've got another pair that, on the face of it, look the same as the ones that you haven't got. It's amazing.
Blisters, right? If you don't break them in.
Blisters, they're just stiff. It's very difficult to do what you can do
Yeah.
normally.
Different feel.
It's not the same.
I'm
It's
not-
not the same. You cannot
not
do
the
the same things. The way you want to pass the ball.
probably
You're
more
looking
mental
at the
than
boots.
anything.
You like them because they're
Psychology,
brand new,
yeah.
but I don't like it.
Delicate creatures, these footballers. For Mario, Herc, Stevie, I'm Seb.
We
Thank
are.
you for watching.
We
Thank
are,
you for
Seb.
sending the
Thank you.
questions.
We
And
are.
we'll see you right back here for tomorrow's edition of ESPN FC.